I signed my divorce papers that morning, and by midnight, I was feeling things I had no business feeling. And the worst part? I do not regret a single second of it. Hey girls, I am Brooke Anderson. Pull up a chair because tonight I am telling you everything about that rainy Friday night in Brooklyn that completely changed me. So let me take you back to that morning first, because you need to understand where my head was before any of this happened. I had been sitting in a lawyer's office on Montague Street in Brooklyn Heights since 9 in the morning. The kind of office that has leather chairs that are too stiff to actually be comfortable and framed diplomas on every single wall. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia, slid the papers across the desk toward me and said, "Brooke, this is it. You just need to sign right here." And I remember thinking, this is it? 3 years of my life, and it ends with a ballpoint pen on a Friday morning in a room that smells like old coffee and carpet cleaner? I signed. I did not cry. I thought I would cry. I had been crying for 6 months straight leading up to that moment, soaking through pillowcases, calling my best friend Hannah at 2 in the morning just to breathe on the phone with someone. But right there in that office, my hand was completely steady. I signed Brooke Anderson. I had already gone back to my maiden name in my head months before the ink ever dried, and I slid the papers back across the desk and said, "Thank you, Patricia." And then I walked out onto Montague Street into the gray February air, and I just stood there on the sidewalk for a long moment. People were rushing past me with their coffee cups and their umbrellas and their completely ordinary Fridays, and I was just standing there thinking, okay, what now? I took the 2 train from Borough Hall back to my apartment on Vanderbilt Avenue in Prospect Heights. I had moved there 4 months earlier when Daniel and I first separated. It is a pre-war building, the kind with the black and white tile in the lobby and a buzzer system that works only about 60% of the time. My apartment is on the 3rd floor. Walk up. No elevator. Which I actually love now because it means I always hear people coming and going on the stairs, and it makes the building feel alive somehow. I got home. I changed into my softest sweatpants, and I sat on my couch and I looked around my apartment and I thought, I need to eat something. I had not eaten all day. My stomach felt hollow, but not in a sad way, more like an empty page kind of way. Like something had ended and something else had not started yet, and there was just this quiet open space in between. So I picked up my phone and I ordered from this Thai place on Vanderbilt that I love, Prick Thai, because their pad CEW is the only thing that has ever made me feel unconditionally loved. I ordered enough for 2 people even though I was eating alone, which, if you know me girls, you know I always do that. I cannot help it. I ordered the pad CEW, the spring rolls, and a green curry that I knew I would eat cold for breakfast the next morning. The delivery estimate said 30 to 40 minutes. I put on a playlist I had made months ago that I called Fresh Start, which was just a collection of songs that felt like opening a window. I poured myself a glass of red wine, a Malbec I had been saving for no particular reason, and I sat by my window and watched the rain come down on Vanderbilt Avenue. And girls, I want you to picture this with me for a second. Because the rain in Brooklyn on a February night is its own kind of thing. It is not pretty rain. It is cold and sideways, and it turns the street into this orange glowing blur from the streetlights and the passing headlights, and everyone is rushing and hunched and miserable. And I was sitting there in my warm apartment with my wine and my Fresh Start playlist, and I felt, and I know this sounds strange given what the day had been, I felt almost peaceful. Almost. Because underneath the peace there was this other thing. This quiet little ache that had nothing to do with Daniel and nothing to do with the divorce. It was older than that. It was the kind of ache you feel when you realize you have been so busy surviving something that you completely forgot to actually feel anything real for a very long time. I had spent 3 years in a marriage that had slowly gone cold and quiet, and 6 months fighting my way out of it, and somewhere in all of that I had just stopped feeling things. Not sad things. Any things. About 40 minutes later, my buzzer rang. I pressed the intercom button and said, "Hello." And a voice came back, a warm, slightly out-of-breath voice, and said, "Delivery for Anderson?" And I buzzed him in. Now, girls, I want you to understand something. I was not looking for anything that night. I was in my divorce sweatpants. My hair was in a bun that had given up on itself hours ago. I had mascara that had migrated somewhere below where mascara is supposed to live. I was absolutely not prepared for what walked through my door. I heard the knock and I opened it and the man standing in my hallway was soaking wet. His jacket was completely drenched, his dark hair was pushed back from his face, and he was holding this big brown paper bag of food like it was something precious, and he was not going to let the rain ruin it. He looked up when I opened the door and he smiled and said, "Sorry, the buzzer downstairs is a little slow and I had to wait a few minutes in the rain." And I just stood there for a second too long before I said, "Oh no, I am so sorry about that. The buzzer in this building has a whole personality." He laughed. And I want to tell you something about that laugh because I think about it still. It was not a polite laugh. It was a real one. The kind that reaches a person's eyes. His name, I saw it on the little card attached to the bag, was James. I took the bag from him and something in me, something that had been very quiet for a very long time, just shifted. Like a window opening. Like that first breath of air after being inside too long. I said, "You are completely soaked. Do you want, I have paper towels, or I could get you a towel if you want to dry off for a second before you head back out into that." And I gestured toward the hallway window where you could see the rain absolutely hammering the fire escape outside. He looked a little surprised. And then he looked at the rain. And then he looked back at me. And he said, "If that is genuinely okay with you, I would really appreciate that." So I opened the door wider and he stepped inside. Girls. He stepped inside. I got him a towel from the bathroom closet, a real one, not a paper towel. I do not know what I was thinking offering a paper towel. And he dried his face and his hands and pushed his hair back, and I went to the kitchen to unpack the food because I needed something to do with my hands. And he leaned against my kitchen doorway and said, "This smells incredible, by the way." Good choice. And I said, "It is from Prick Thai on Vanderbilt. Do you know it?" And he said, "Are you kidding me? I grew up in Crown Heights. That place has been my comfort food since I was 17 years old." And just like that, we were talking. Really talking. The way you talk to someone when the rain is coming down outside and the food smells good and there is nowhere either of you actually needs to be in the next 10 minutes. He told me he had been doing delivery work on the side while finishing his last semester at Brooklyn Law. He was 27 years old. He had grown up in Crown Heights, moved to Bed-Stuy 2 years ago, and he said New York City in February was deeply unfair to people who did not own a proper rain jacket, which made me laugh harder than I had laughed in longer than I could remember. I told him I had just had a very significant day. I did not say what kind. But something about the way I said it made him look at me with this quiet, steady attention that I was completely unprepared for. He said, "Good significant or hard significant?" And I said, "Both, I think. Maybe neither. I honestly do not know yet." And he nodded like that was the most reasonable answer in the world. We stood in my kitchen for a while, and then somehow we were sitting at my small dining table by the window and the food was between us, and I had poured a second glass of wine and asked if he wanted one, and he said yes, and girls, we sat there for almost 2 hours. 2 hours. The rain never stopped. The playlist kept going. And somewhere in that time I stopped feeling like a woman who had signed divorce papers that morning and started feeling like just a person. A real, warm, present person who was having a genuinely wonderful conversation with someone equally real and warm and present. He did not try to be anything other than exactly what he was. That was the thing. There was no performance to it. He talked about his mother who still lived in Crown Heights and called him every Sunday morning at 8 regardless of what time zone he was in. He talked about how Brooklyn had changed since he was a kid and how he felt both proud and a little sad about it at the same time. He listened to me talk about my Fresh Start playlist and why I had named it that without asking me to explain the significance of the name, which meant he already understood it. When he finally stood up to leave, he looked around my apartment, at the plants I had lined up on the windowsill, at the stack of books on my coffee table, at the half-empty bottle of Malbec, and he said, "I really hope your significant day turns into a good one. You deserve that." And I stood at my door after he left, and I leaned my back against it, and I closed my eyes. And I felt it. That thing I had forgotten about. That warm, alive, completely inconvenient feeling that reminds you that you are still here, still in your body, still capable of being moved by something as simple as a real conversation with a kind person on a rainy night. I did not know his last name. I did not ask for his number. Maybe that was the point. Maybe some moments are not supposed to become something else. Maybe some moments are just supposed to remind you that you are still you. Girls, I have thought about that Friday night more times than I can count since it happened. Not because of James specifically, but because of what I felt when he left. That feeling was mine. It had nothing to do with my marriage or my divorce or Daniel or any of it. It was just me, remembering that I am still someone who can feel things deeply and suddenly and without any warning at all. And honestly, after everything I had been through, that felt like the best possible thing I could have learned about myself on the day my old life officially ended. New York City has a funny way of reminding you who you are when you least expect it. All it takes sometimes is a rainy Friday night, a good pad CEW, and a stranger who actually listens. If you felt something listening to this tonight, I just want you to know you are not alone in any of it. The loneliness, the starting over, the unexpected moments that catch you completely off guard. That is all part of it. That is all part of being alive. I am Brooke Anderson, and I share a brand new story right here every single week. If this felt like your kind of conversation, hit that subscribe button and come pull up a chair with me again next time. I will be here. I always am.